Welcome, guys. Welcome to the Brand Identity Design Podcast. And my name is Jason. I'm your host. And you're listening to this live podcast, which we are hosting right now, broadcasting or simulcasting on LinkedIn, Twitter Spaces, and even on Clubhouse. So thank you so much for your love and support. And I'm so happy to see all the 5 listeners on LinkedIn. And I'm hoping we will get more listeners on Twitter and Clubhouse simultaneously. Just wanted to shout out to all my fans and supporters of this Brand Identity Design Podcast. Now, to give you an overview as to what this show is about, just in case if you're new, we are currently doing this series called as The Dark Side of Entrepreneurship. The aim of the show is to educate entrepreneurs about business, recommend methods on how to deal with adversities while running a business. And I do this by interviewing high level business executives throughout the globe, and they are willing to share their personal and professional experiences with my listeners so that we can educate and pass this knowledge through. I can also assure you this is not just another boring business talk show. We will be injecting a healthy dose of humor and personality to this mix. So if you're listening to us live, sit back, relax, get ready to laugh and learn with us. And today we will be discussing an interesting topic. It's called as offering golden handcuffs in business. I know when you actually hear this out, you might get a negative association of the word handcuffs. Okay, but the idea is to give you a perspective, a unique perspective on what are the pros and cons of having a golden handcuff in business, why many businesses lean on to this direction, what are these handcuffs, and what are the things which involve in making these handcuffs. So we're going to deep dive into this conversation, try to understand what are such incentives which helps employees to be a part of your business, retain your employees as a part of your business for a long period of time. And I have Frankie, who is with me, who is a financial consultant and educator. I want to quickly give Frankie a shout out because he made it on this show. As you guys know, that recently I just saw this news about recent earthquake in near LA and Southern California. Frankie was also a part of that area. Luckily, it didn't have such a very big impact. But Frankie, thank you so much for making the time out to be a part of this show, even after going through those horrific conditions and earthquakes which are happening. I also want to send out some love, support, and prayers to all those individuals who have been affected by this earthquake in LA and Southern California. So my prayers are with you guys. I hope everybody is safe and sound. People who are actually listening to the show live, if you have any of your loved ones who are in Southern California or LA area, feel free to come up on stage and you can send a message. Hopefully your friends or family members in that area should be able to listen to this. So now, before we start the show, I want to actually give a little introduction to who Frankie is. Frankie helps people retire with dignity. He distills the lesson he has learned over the last 16 years to empower our youth to make better financial decisions than the generation before them. This is deeply a personal mission for Frankie because he was born to a high school age parents and money was always a struggle, and he learned that hard work alone wasn't the key to financial freedom, and sought a much more fulfilling path. Now, Frankie also does a lot of volunteer efforts, span from building school gardens, judging business pitches, to hosting a walk or running club. He's also the best-selling author and will be releasing a children cookbook in 2023, which is next year. I wish you good luck, Frankie, with that. And Frankie and his wife and his 2 amazing children can be found exploring, volunteering, building throughout this community. He has a wealth of knowledge when it comes to money and how to manage money and deal with it. So you will be getting a flavor of what he does and what he brings to the equation, the table. So let's actually deep dive into this topic. Now, before we get into tactics, Frankie, as you know, I want to actually understand who is the person behind the camera. So could you tell us a bit about your childhood and what was it growing up with your high school age parents? What did you learn from them specifically about money?
Hey everyone. Yeah, it's morning here in California, so I'll say good morning to you. Thank you for taking the time to be here. It was challenging growing up. I was born in Oakland, California. I don't tell this story too often, but especially since I started speaking in high schools, these students who are going through some really tough times right now. I think we all are. They want to know, what was my background like, and uh, what was it like, because they want to see if someone that's like them has been through similar circumstances, and how I was able to, instead of be the victim and blame circumstances, blame the government, how did I find a way to find some peace and to excel throughout my personal career. So yeah, my mom was 16 when she had me. She dropped out of high school. I actually went to my dad's high school graduation. I think I was 2 days old. And so if you can imagine yourself when you were 17, 18 years old, going up to get your diploma, and on the way there, you're strolling your kid. They always tell you when you're a teenager that you've got your whole life ahead of you. But think about what my dad was feeling at the time, and now he's got this family that he has to take care of. And so money was tough. I always say that there was too much month at the end of our money. And but it taught me a lot. I learned that my dad, one of the hardest working people I know. I learned that just working hard and having pride in your work and high integrity, that doesn't mean that you're gonna be financially successful. We have an economy where, unfortunately, there are employers or companies that take advantage of labor. They don't treat people fairly, and that shows. There's so many people are stressed out right now with their personal financial issues. We've got 30, 40, 50% of employees saying that they are stressed out about personal issues, and that translates into them taking time out of work or during company time to try to handle these issues. So now I'll take a pause there, but I learned a lot.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I can't imagine being born at when your parents were also young, trying to figure out their life. Your mom was 16 when she had you. That
Hmm.
is as mind-boggling, right, Frankie? So, well, see, I'm glad that you shared your personal story. So let's actually move ahead and deep dive into this conversation. But before I move ahead, I do want to play this sound effect, to welcome you to the Brand Identity Design podcast. So thank you. That's Frankie, guys. Please give him some love and support. So let's actually move ahead with this question about what are golden handcuffs,
Hmm.
and it is such a word which has this negativity associated to it, although that's not the intent. I think when I researched about this, according to Merriam-Webster, it defines golden handcuffs as a special benefit offered to an employee as an inducement to continue services. This term was first coined around in 1976, and following this practice under the name of golden handshake. So, I mean, initially it was known as golden handshakes back in the 60s, and during the 70s, we migrated that word to golden handcuffs. So, can you tell a bit about what are these golden handcuffs, why use it, and maybe share an example, a real example, so that people can understand and get more context?
Yeah, absolutely, Jason. There's more competition than ever for small businesses, medium businesses to be able to attract and retain their key employees. If you think about, I'm here in Silicon Valley. You're competing with Google, you're competing with Facebook, Apple, to try to keep your best people. But how can you compete with their basically unlimited budgets? How do you speak to people on a level that they are comfortable with, that they can relate to, so that you can keep them for the long term? Because it's easier than ever before in our time, with the advances in technology, for someone who is leadership minded, who is business and building minded, to be able to go solo. So really, what's their incentive to stick around? And how do you keep them in line with your vision versus them taking off for their own solo adventure, or them getting recruited by those huge multinational companies? So the golden handcuffs are incentives that create a win-win situation where that employee wants to stick around, not for a year, not for 2 years. We're talking 5, 10 years plus. And you're right. There has been a negative connotation to golden handcuffs because we think a lot about what were our parents doing. The world has changed so much. People are not sticking at a job for 30, 40 years. Most of those folks have either retired or they're in the chute to retire in the next couple of years. And with a younger workforce, the millennials being the largest workforce out there now, they don't want to stick around because they're not thinking job based, they're not thinking company based, they're thinking project based. So, how do you incentivize them within your company to continue to build and learn and grow? And you, being the business owner, still benefit from that. So, that's what the golden handcuffs are. They're not meant to keep people tied down, they're meant to create that win win situation.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100% on this because I understand, because I have been a part of a lot of corporate jobs, small and even medium sized businesses, and even bigger. I realize that small and medium sized businesses, do put a lot of money and resources to hire and train their employees. So they sometimes even go over and above their expenditures to make this happen, with the assumption that they're going to have an employee retained for a longer duration. So there's a lot of opportunity cost involved. So what they want to do is they want to ensure that a person sticks around for a longer duration so that they can get benefits out of it, right? And
Yeah, absolutely.
that's what this golden handcuffs is all about. Would you mind telling me such examples of what exactly would be a golden handcuff?
Sure. Yeah, there's a lot of different ways to do it. The main thing is you're finding a way to transfer the business's assets into that key executive's assets, into their wealth, but doing it in a tax advantaged way. So here in the United States, we have things called the Section 162 plan, which is basically an executive bonus plan. We have key person life insurance, we have deferred compensation plans, and this applies for not just here in the United States. Uh, there are equivalents that are growing in places like Australia, the UK, really everywhere as the global competition gets more fierce for these key folks and the legislation changes in different countries. It becomes more and more available to executives, especially as we move into this remote sort of economy.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And some of the benefits, as you guys correctly would know, would be that some organizations offer equity, take equity in their company, in their organization. They sell equity, and employees can buy it so that they have more ownership. They're committed to the organization's growth. Some offer bonuses, vacation homes is another example. Some companies also offer loan repayment benefits. Some companies also offer pension plans and all those other things which Frankie mentioned. So thank you so much, Frankie, for highlighting this. I want to actually deep dive into the pros and cons of it. So, should your organization, when I say your, I mean the listeners,
Mhm.
should your organization or your company try to create golden handcuffs as a compensation environment for your employees? And maybe you can give people the pros and cons of having a golden handcuff.
Well, there's huge pros over giving up equity. And so, especially in the beginning, if you're in startup mode, you don't have a lot to offer people. And that's why I mentioned, whereas these other companies have practically unlimited budgets to hire and attract, they have recruiters that are working 24/7. But in the beginning, if it's just you literally out of your garage, you don't have a lot to offer these executives to come on board. And so the combination, the money alone, we know is not going to keep people, not while keeping them happy. But if you give up equity in that company, you're giving up, tremendous upside, and you don't know if that person's even going to stick around and what they're going to do. And so instead of giving them straight equity in the company, where now they could potentially become a liability or shift the entire mission of the company, you can give them, options. You can give them stock options where you're giving them a specific price at some point in the future. And this is especially difficult because being a smaller company, you're not on the Australian, stock exchange. You're not on the S&P 500. And so there isn't necessarily a stated value there. But if you give them an option to buy stock, then further down the line, uh, there are secondary markets where people can buy and share things that are not listed on the public stock exchanges. And that becomes very enticing, especially in a privately held or closely held corporation, because they can build up this portfolio where they're getting in early. And then one day, when the company expands and grows and starts taking on more money or becomes listed, they have a way to basically cash out. So that the pros are really never ending, because especially with these executive bonus plans, there are a ton of little features that can be personalized to that key executive. I'll give you an example. With the executive bonus plan, if someone has a family, there are built-in benefits like a death benefit, basically. And if that person dies before retirement, now their family is taken care of. The key word that I want people to take away from all of these things that I'm discussing is leverage. If you just straight give them a cash bonus, that's nice. That gives people some freedom, but there's no future term there. You've got to hope that they maybe invest the money properly instead of going out and blowing it. But in these bonus plans, there's stipulations, there's a vesting schedule. They don't just automatically get the money. You deposit it as the business owner, you get the tax break, and you control the vesting schedule. So you incentivize them to stay 5, 10, 15 years. If they don't stay, then there's a portion of that a lot of times that you can actually recall, similar to like a 401k or some other type of deferred compensation. So their family is taken care of, and that money can actually be a supplemental plan, especially in these small to medium businesses. A lot of times they don't even have a 401k plan or whatever the equivalent is in your country. So how do people save for retirement? I see this a lot, even in nonprofits. I know we're talking about for-profit businesses, but a lot of not-for-profits do not have a 401k, 403b, 457. And now these folks leave for the private sector strictly because they want to get benefits. But this gives you the ability to incentivize even those nonprofit employees that, hey, we have something that's really tax favored, because that person can access this money in retirement. And a lot of times it'll be, they're not going to owe any taxes because you're the one that's getting the tax break for it. And then they can also, the executive or that key employee can also contribute to that pot of money to help it grow even faster. So think about that. If they are also contributing to the plan, they are even more vested in it. They understand the value of it. They want to stick around even longer. And then when they do leave, because most employees are going to leave at some point, right? Uh, Sooner probably than later, you don't have to worry about covering those costs anymore. It's portable. They take that plan that they write off to whatever their next mission is, and you are free of that obligation. So I'll take a little pause there because I know that was a lot to cover.
It was a lot, but I think it was helpful information. And listeners, if you actually see, if you're getting value from this conversation, please give me a thumbs up, using the emojis, so that we know that, you're getting value from this conversation. So, so let's actually talk about the cons. What are the negative side of what you see with having golden handcuffs offered in a business?
Hmm. Yeah, there are definitely some negatives, and the big part is getting people on board with it because, as you mentioned, there have been some negative connotations to golden handcuffs. We've all heard the story of a parent or grandparent who just they I don't like to use the word hate, but they just despise their work. They're really there just for the paycheck, or they need to stay a couple more years. You don't want those folks in your organization. Nothing on them, nothing on you, but they're just trying to stick it out. And those are not the type of people, especially in the startup phase, that you want building your business. You want people who are passionate. You want them to be there. And so there has to be some coaching and some conversation around like, hey, this is why we do this. This is the value. And it leaves everyone, feeling amicable if there is a split. The other challenge is, the cost can get out of hand. It's not as expensive as having to hire new people. Anyone who's done any hiring, especially through a recruiter, knows if you're paying an executive, we're talking executive salaries here, right? So six figures, 100,000, 200,000 plus, it's going to cost you just as much to pay a recruiter, advertise, interview, not including all the, the opportunity costs. So, it's simpler to maintain than a lot of formal plans. There's less government oversight, but it's not without its cons. I was looking at a study that was done in Australia, and their costs to run these plans have gotten so out of control, and it's shifting, but it's gotten so out of control because in Australia they're actually having to fly people back and forth, contractors and even employees, to be able to retain them. And so you need someone to be able to guide you in these plans to see, like, what actually is affordable in the company's budget, what's too much, what's not enough. There's definitely a spectrum here, because if you don't get it right, you're going to be paying out a ton of costs, and you might not even be doing it in a way that the employee feels valued. And so, it does take some coaching and some structure. So there are other things that people can do. I think you touched on it. I'll talk about a few of those things, but
Mm-hmm.
things like, you really have to know that executives' motivations. Why are they here? Are they tied to the mission? Are they coming in saying, "Hey, I'm going to be here for 3, 4, 5 years, and then I want to split off"? You can incentivize them to maybe still build under your roof, but they have autonomy. That's what executives, anyone that's here on this call probably knows, especially if you're an executive, you're a business owner. You did it because you love the autonomy. Executives want the same thing. They want a certain level of being able to make decisions without you micromanaging. And so, ways that you can incentivize people to get over those cons, pizza parties aren't going to cut it, right? You need to be sending them off to certifications, get them extra coaching,
Yeah.
courses,
Mm-hmm.
executive retreats, enroll them in a mastermind. These are all things that are even cheaper than running these executive plans. So you can kind of supplement and do both. But get them around other sharp people, get them some coaching that's outside of your organization. And I know that sounds a little scary, because you think, oh, well, what's going to happen if I put them out in the wild and they're hearing other people talk? It's actually going to be a great recruiting tool for you, because they're going to say, hey, I've got all these great things going on at my company. Uh, Other executives are not having those great things. And so when they find out at your company, you've got this tuition assistance program, you're paying out a car allowance, you're reimbursing for vacation homes or something like that, you're helping them build their trust and build their generational wealth, you will actually recruit other executives away from other companies, because you're doing such a great job retaining your executives. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, absolutely. It makes perfect sense to me. Go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah. And so the other thing that I want to talk about is something that's not a key executive plan that people can really benefit from, that gets overlooked way too often, because especially in the old school days, it was, work is work, home is home. But I don't want to use the word work-life balance, because that's sort of a misnomer. But as I mentioned, majority of employees are affected by what goes on at home, and they bring that to work. And so there's something called an employee assistance program. There's a version of this in all the countries that I mentioned earlier. So this is not specific to the United States, but you're talking basically about a hotline that's 24/7. It could be anonymous, and you can actually, without getting involved, you're outsourcing this. You can provide your employees free counseling. You can provide them, legal help, some basic legal stuff as far as building a will, referrals to trust attorneys, so that they can not just pick up a salary from you, but that they can actually build wealth. And it gives them, some health benefits. A lot of health insurance plans offer a discount to a gym, and so they can get that the through the employee, resource program. Even crisis response. We mentioned all the earthquakes going on here in California. We had some major ones yesterday, and hopefully it's just the aftershocks today. But what happens when there's an earthquake? Your employee, if their house is not right, they're not showing up to work for you today. If they're worried about whether there's cracks in their foundation or there's flooding in the basement, but if you can get them a 24/7 resource that they can call, and you don't have to do any of that work, guess what? They're going to be better prepared. They're going to feel confident every day coming into work, knowing that you've got their back. And like I said, gym memberships. But the biggest thing is what we've been talking about is having a conversation with people, treating them with respect, people feeling included, people feeling represented. It's all about managing that communication. And in reality, that's free, right? Managing that communication, having a conversation with people. And I'm not just talking about the executives at the highest level. What about your managers? There's so many managers tell me when I speak to companies, they tell me, hey, we've got these managers, but they don't feel in the loop. They don't feel empowered. You can do these things for the managers. You can do these things for your frontline employees. And think about it. I mean, they'll feel just as empowered. They'll feel like, hey, I have say here. I represent the company. I'm proud to wear the company's jersey on my back. These are all ways that you're giving people autonomy. So I'll take a pause there.
I love everything which you said. I love the part, which wherein you explained that everyone loves autonomy, including the employers and even the employees. And I also like the fact that what you said about the employee assistance program, which is a service which companies can take advantage of so that we can offer additional support to our employees. And when we offer these additional support to our employees, you don't have to handcuff them, right? Because you
Nope.
offer these benefits, they tend to be more loyal to your organization, and they tend to stick around more. Am I right? Am I getting this right, Frankie?
Absolutely, because I work again all levels of folks, blue collar especially. There's supplemental benefits, these things that I've been talking about. They're not handcuffs. They want these things. They're saying they want these things, and it's just important as the salary. It's just important as the health insurance, because even something as simple as short term disability plans that these folks can buy for $10, $20 a month, you know, sometimes as an executive or as a CEO, you forget that you're printing your own paycheck basically. You forget that you can self-insure in many cases against things like the natural disasters that I was talking about or the loss of a job. But your frontline folks cannot self-insure. Most Americans cannot cover an emergency today of $1,000 bucks. Even $400 bucks is the other statistic that 70 or 80% of people in America today cannot cover an expense of $400. And so if they lose their job or if they're calling in sick, they have no income. And so if people are wondering why is it so hard to get people to show up for work right now? Well, because they've got a lot of things going on in their life. And so if you can give them these supplemental benefits that they really want that they may not know is available, they are going to be so incredibly loyal to the organization, to your mission, to your vision, and they're going to be your best raving fans. And you take care of them, they're going to take care of your customers.
I agree with you 100% on this. So, guys, if you're listening to us on LinkedIn, Clubhouse, or Twitter, I just want to let you know that we will start Q&A in about 5 to 10 minutes. Please stay. If you're on stage, please continue to be on stage. I'll be happy to pass on the mic once we are done with a few more questions which I have for Frankie. So, I want to move on to the next thing. So, Frankie, my next question is, could you help my audience understand about employee retention credit? That's something which you had highlighted when we were having back and forth chat about our show. Okay, and which business will be eligible for this, and how much is this credit worth?
Yeah, that's a great question. I wanted to give sort of a little bonus that's not exactly what people think they were getting, but just to give some extra value. So we're talking about the employee retention credit, and that's specific to America, but there is a version of that in other countries. So again, it's the employee retention credit. This is a carryover from the CARES Act here in the United States, which was dealing with the pandemic. Okay, so businesses that kept their employees on during the pandemic are more than likely eligible for a tax credit, and it's not just a one-time, like a lump sum. It's per employee, and so we're talking three, four, $5,000 per employee that you kept on during the pandemic. So whether you're a small business or you've got 2,000, 5,000, 10,000 employees, I mean, do the math there. That's going to go straight back into your bottom line. You could do anything you want with that. That can help reimburse that solopreneur that's got some employees, that are doing work for them. Maybe you had a tough time weathering the storm. You had to dip into your personal pockets to keep your business going. Because as the business owner, right, that everyone else has to get paid before you do. And so this is a way to get that money back in your pocket so you could put it back into wherever you took that loan from. Uh, and or you could use that lump sum, because sometimes those are far and few between, to start your retention processes. You can open up these executive bonus plans. You can give bonuses to people. I mean, think about that. If this is December, right? A lot of people leave in January. Imagine if you had known about this last year, you could be handing out bonuses right now to your employees. And you think they're going anywhere? If you $100, $200 per employee to give back to them in some type of way that's meaningful to them, the thought is what really counts there, believe it or not. It's not necessarily the dollar amount. And so getting that tax credit in per employee, again, it can be more in some cases. I've seen people getting 10, 15, 20 grand. There's some qualifications there. It's not for everybody, but you are bringing tremendous value and safety and security. Because why do so many people leave in January? Because they're hoping just to get that year end bonus, and then they're going to move on. Because if they leave in, I don't know, November, October, December, they're not going to get it. But if you were having conversations with your employees now, and not just exit interviews, don't wait until it's too late to figure out what happened. Have retention interviews, stay interviews. Hey, I'm checking in with you. How are you doing interviews? Then people aren't thinking January to December. They're not thinking of these cutoffs in a way of like, oh, hey, as soon as the bell rings, I'm out of here. They're thinking, wow, these people actually care about me. These people, we're like a family. I really, it makes me cringe when businesses say, oh, we're like a family. Well, first of all, a lot of us don't have an example of what a good family should look like. It's dysfunctional, right? Secondly, it falls on empty ears. It actually does the reverse. It doesn't keep people. It makes them want to get out of there even faster, because they know that it's hollow words. And so the employee retention credit, find the equivalent in your country and apply. Let them tell you no. It's a tremendous benefit, and that could lead you also to other benefits that are specific to your area that that we don't even know about yet. So I hope that was a meaningful explanation for your audience.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. It reminded me when he spoke about family. This reminded
Hmm.
me of a reel which I just watched today, and this employee, he was like, "You're not Vin Diesel, and this is not Fast and Furious 10." Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the old Vin Diesel memes of family.
All right, all right. Now, so the next question which I have for you, Frankie, is that, so, it's challenging to find out information to retain an employee. I mean, honestly, you may have a lot of things in your head and you may not even show any sign or symbol that, you are about to quit or leave this organization. So, how can an employer get an open and honest answer from their employees about their work culture, their satisfaction rate, or their fulfillment level? What kind of outside help maybe employers can take advantage of to get a better understanding of this? What's your professional view on this?
Yeah, that's a great point, and you already hit it on the head. That if you want to figure out how to get people to stay, it should not always be the direct manager trying to get that feedback. And that seems obvious, right? We all know that working for a manager, especially if there's some friction there, we're not going to be as open and honest with them, because we're afraid of retaliation. We're afraid of what they're going to think of me. We don't want to share personal information sometimes with someone that's going to, that's sort of uh, overarching or overreaching over us. And so it's very simple to leverage a third party that can come in, be a consultant, take a bird's eye view, but also hear from the boots on the ground what's going on in this organization. And they can offer honest, objective feedback about how your operations are running, how your systems are running, because it should not fall on the business owner. Again, that word leverage that I've been trying to intertwine throughout our conversation. As the business owner, you could be the best at everything, but you can't do it all at the same time. And so leverage resources, leverage organizations that are professionals. They do this day in and day out. They'll come in, they'll survey, they'll interview, They'll evaluate whether or not something you're doing is working, because the worst thing you could do is keep putting, besides treating people wrong, is putting good money on top of bad money. So you need to have, we all know the saying, right? If it gets measured, it gets improved. You need to have someone come in to evaluate, are my efforts actually working, or am I totally missing the mark? Because those other things, without the executive plans to retain people at all levels, those are actually much more affordable. And so maybe you need to shore those things up, but you're not going to know unless you get some objective feedback, because everyone knows how to tell the boss what they want to hear. And that's not the kind of organization you want to run if you're still listening to this. So just get some third party assistance, and I promise you, it leaps and bounds. You're not going to just see people happier. You're going to see your bottom line shoot through the roof when you're treating people right, and you have measurements in place to evaluate whether or not it's working.
Absolutely, that is some great advice, and I definitely would encourage organization, companies, or business owners who are listening to this podcast to follow the same thing. Look out for outside help so that you can analyze things better. I also, when I have worked with big corporations, okay, like Chase and Citibank, to name a few, Frankie, I've seen that, when you ask us people at the same hierarchy to get information or dig down information about employee satisfaction, employees would end up saying the things which they want to hear because they don't want eyeballs on their shoulders. They don't want heat, right? They don't want to be the person, who is being negative in the organization. I'm just being realistic, right?
Absolutely.
They would not open up. So having an outsider would be able to navigate and identify if this person is actually being honest, or are they trying to just fool around and just make stuff appear that it's good. So those are some great points which you shared, Frankie. Now, apart from money, okay, being a motivational factor, because you said a lot of things, but other than those examples, is there something else which business owners can offer their employees so they can stick around more? You spoke about the employee assistance program, you spoke about bonuses, you can offer equity. Is there anything more tangible? I think maybe a great work culture would be nice. Okay, flexible working conditions would be also cool. What else can you think of?
Well, of course, we've touched on remote work, giving people some flexibility.
Uh-huh.
I think there's been an excessive use of Zoom meetings over the last couple of years, where we're just having meetings just to have meetings. Not every meeting needs to be a Zoom meeting. It could be a phone call, it could be an email, it can be just an informal discussion. Encourage people to get outside, as silly as it sounds. Get some sunlight first thing in the morning, see the sunset in the evening. I know that's not exactly what people were expecting to hear from me regarding this topic, but encourage people to get outside. Work breaks into the agenda. If I look at your agenda for any meeting and it's longer than an hour and there's not a 5 minute break, a stretch break, a breathe break, there's something wrong there. We're not designed to be sitting for hours at a time. And that's free. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and people will be they'll be focused because they're not distracted. Especially if, as an executive, your phone is buzzing and chirping and tweeting all day long. Every time that happens, you want to check your phone. But if you work that break into there, that gives them some space. Oh, I got to make this quick phone call, put this fire out real quick. It gives them some incentive. The other thing is, every single person in your organization should be able to relay the mission in 5-10 seconds or less. Every single person should know what's going on. That chain of command, that flow of information should be through and through. And so, whether that's that frontline worker, they're the cashier, or they're the customer sales support representative, they should be able to know the mission. They need to know it through and through. At a moment, anytime you ask them, they should know it. The customer should know that they know what the mission is. And that's free too, to have those conversations and say, hey, we're a tight organization. This is what we're about. It's not for everybody, but we're here to, again, provide autonomy to support our customers and our clients in the best way possible. And that's free. To have the CEO come out, to be involved with people. And I promise it's not going to feel like they're overreaching or looking over your shoulder or market managing, because consistency consistency is the key in what we're talking about.
Absolutely. I love what you have shared, Frankie. Thank you so much for sharing this. Okay, so let's actually start with Q&A because we have a few people on stage. I want to welcome Pushkaraj, who has been patiently waiting for us. Please flash your mic if you're available.
Yes, hi. Hi, everybody. Hi, Thomas. Nice to see you again. Always a pleasure. I'll be very quick. Sorry, go to respect
You
time.
can you can
So,
take you can take your time, Pushkaraj. You don't have to hustle.
okay,
So feel free to ask question and even follow up questions, anything as long as it's
sure.
related to the topic. Go ahead.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, right now, I have contacted a few companies. Okay, so when we talk about employees, they are not just staff numbers or ID numbers. That's what I'm trying to get in the head of the higher management. So, one of my approach would be, and I want your thoughts on this. So, I am going to target the interviews right now. So let's say the company hires 10 candidates for the final interview, okay? And out of 10, they want to just select two. So as a channel partner or a person in digging the case study, those 8 people who are rejected, I'm not going to tell them to go away. I'm just going to re-interview them, and I want to see what went wrong. Because I'll tell you something, the interview sessions right now, whoever is conducting, are so messed up. And that's the core of any organization. If your interview pattern or schedule or process is just like any ordinary, that's where the problem starts. So this is my first approach to that organization where I've pitched in. I want to re-interview or just interact with those rejected ones and get to know, because what happens is I've been through a lot of interviews to gain some knowledge, and trust me, I don't even want to open my mouth from where to where it goes. So this is my approach for one of the case studies which I'm doing. So what do you think on that?
Man, Pushkaraj, that was amazing. So many things that you said. I mean, there's so much to unpack there. I think that's really important, and the key is that you've been through that process yourself, and so you know what it feels like when a recruiter or an organization puts you through two, three, four interviews, and then they don't even let you know that you didn't get the job, right? The horror stories that I hear day in and day out, or that people are publishing on LinkedIn about how an employer couldn't give you the time of day, or they were asking for things that felt unreasonable. And you can learn so much more from the sale that you didn't make, from the person that you didn't hire, or even that person who had the job. You gave it to them, but they said, mm, no, thank you. I don't want it anymore." There's so much that you can learn from those folks. And me having a sales background, I generate more referrals from the folks that didn't do business than I do from the folks who have stuck around, at least up front. And so why is that? Because we're having a conversation with these people. We're asking them, "Hey, who else has this problem?" Or, "Hey, you know what? Maybe this isn't the right fit for you, Push Garage, but who do you know that might be the right fit for our organization? Or who do you know, who do you know who would be comfortable here, or who do you think would be the best fit?" There's so many things that you can learn from those conversations. And you just got to keep, I would just encourage you to keep fighting the good fight there, and to get some allies, and to get folks who are currently in the organization to also speak up and say, "Hey, you know what, uh, there's some things, some difficulties that I had during the onboarding process." Because however you hire them, that's why they're going to leave. And so if you hired them based on the money, guess what, as soon as they can get a little bit more money, they're leaving. If you hired them based on the culture, but then the culture was toxic, guess what? They're leaving for the better culture, the greener pastures. And so when you get that, when you can be empathetic to what their situation is, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I felt like, "Oh man, if I don't get this, if this job doesn't start when it says it does, or if this doesn't happen, or if that contract doesn't come in, I don't know how I'm going to pay my rent." You know, when you're when you're sitting comfy in your suite, in your executive suite, in your office, you forget about those things. You got to have people like Push Garage that are on the ground fighting the good fight, that are saying, "Hey, there's so much more that we could be doing for these folks." And think about almost like an alumni situation where you say, "Hey, you were here for a couple years. I want to introduce you to someone who maybe you can go work with them now." Or, hey, I know that we weren't the right fit. Can I refer you to a couple companies that might be the right fit for you? Or, hey, I know this other recruiter. I know that that sounds so simple, but that is mind blowing for organizations. They don't get that. They don't think enough about what is their reputation. They think, oh, I look shiny, I look pristine, our company's big, we have these nice offices, we have ping pong tables. Nobody cares about that. That shock wears off very quickly, that gloss. When it gets down to the nitty gritty, you know, what is your retention rate? How much is that costing you? What is your reputation, at the street level, as we say in my industry? So there's so many great things that you said, and I just want to keep encouraging you to keep doing that and get numbers, get data, because sometimes businesses don't believe it unless there's data, and then tie that data to a cost. Hey, we just interviewed 100 people. Uh, we only had one stick around, and then that person left 2 months later. That cost us $300,000, or that cost us, $60,000 plus all the hours, the billable hours that we lost because we were chasing people and then we didn't even offer anyone the job. So I hope that answers your question. I'm open to your feedback on that and your thoughts there.
Frankie, amazing. Jason, amazing. I just want to add just 5 seconds. I'm going to introduce one more very great thing because I joined a little bit late. I'm going to mention because you never know who this will help. I am going to suggest them to have a bonus for children's education. Now, this will have a limit.
Wow.
Okay, because the first concern or the challenge for any family is the child's education. So let's say if I have a company, so I'm going to tell Mr. Let's say Mr. Raj, from grade 1 to grade 7th or from grade 6 to grade 10, I'm going to sponsor 75% of your child's educational allowance or the fees. Now what will this do is indirectly, if I'm a father, my child is taken care of, so I will be the most loyalist person at the end of the day to the organization. Do you think these two things what I'm going to do are going to, I mean, first thing you already clarified, how about the educational allowance?
Absolutely. Childcare, even just the childcare, right? Taking that step even before, trying to help them fund education, especially higher education. The costs are out of control. People are staying home because it's cheaper for that parent to stay home than it is to enter the workforce. It doesn't make sense for someone to work for $20 an hour, or $15 an hour is the minimum wage where I live, $16 an hour, when they've got to go pay $3,000 or $3,500 for someone else to look after their kid all day. The math just doesn't make sense. The stress of it doesn't make sense. Why am I going to pay all that money? Then I got to go work for this business that I'm just really not all that happy with. I just need the check. It just makes everyone unhappy. It makes, people not want to be there. There's resentment that's caused. But the reality is, if someone knows that you care about their family, that business owner, that executive, if you care about their family and you, even know their name, crazy, right? Know the kids' names of the people that you work with. Uh, just like you said, they're going to be so loyal, so fired up. They're coming to work every day. They've got that stress outside, it's outside of them. It doesn't exist anymore. They know they're taken care of. They drop off the kid on the way to work, or you even offer something, you're tied in with a service that gives them a discount. Even that, just the fact that you thought about what's your family like outside of your time here, right? Wow, you're a real person. You have a life outside of this job. Even just that bit of it is so powerful, and it's going to keep getting more and more powerful as our economy continues to evolve. So I think that's so great. And again, if businesses don't believe it unless there's data, right? So I would encourage you to get as much research as possible and present that and say, hey, we could do so much if we get this plan going, and this is how we do it. And that also lets them know that you're a super valuable asset, and that leverages you. And because this isn't just about business owners. If you're someone that's looking, wants these executive plans, or you're trying to figure out what to do with the one that you have, the more valuable you are, the more you can say, hey, I put 10,000, I put 100,000 back into the business. As far as revenue, you can continue to get your bonus plans to go up and up and up. And so, man, so many powerful things that you said. I really appreciate your feedback and your questions.
Thank you so much, both of you. Thank you so much. All over to you, Captain.
Thank you so much, Pushkaraj. Please stay on stage because we have a small rapid fire question round which involves everybody who attends the stage. So please stay on stage if you can. So I wanted to actually share. I mean, it's an excellent idea to have child education as a bonus. Really kudos to you to think about it because that would really hook the person and be make the person loyal to a company. But at the same time, as an organization, we need to also acknowledge and realize that how flexible and how cost effective this decision is, because education is not cheap. So as long as your organization can handle the expenses and ensuring that the same amount of dedication is also offered to their employees, and if it's a healthy mix, I think it's a great thing to go around. It's a great thing to do. If it's not sustainable to that extent, try and experiment with something a little more easy to manage, like try something else. Okay, so but keep experimenting. I strongly am a firm believer of offering support to those individuals who work. So if you can educate your employees, offer them ways and mediums how they can be better, not only at their work but learn new skills, uplift themselves, okay, have more knowledge in comparison to what they're just learning already at work. If you offer them more resources, I feel more accomplished and more valuable to the organization if I was that individual. And there are higher chances that I would stick around because I would be like, what I would be learning next year. Being in this organization, what more is my organization willing to do? Because if you train me how, there's a saying like, if you train me how to find a fish, would not have to, I don't have to beg to have fish. I can go and just fish and just find the fish and take care of myself. I hope that makes sense. That was just something which I just wanted to share. Pushkaraj, I appreciate your contribution. Please continue to be on stage. I wanted to welcome Thomas. Early morning in Australia. How are you? And I hope you remember Frankie from one of our conversations before. How are you?
I'm not too bad. Thank you, and I do remember Frankie. I came on a little bit late. Um, I slept in, so don't laugh, but that's good for me. So it's actually ultimately, if I don't turn up to these things, it's probably good news because it means my sleep will become more extended. However, I did wake up at 4:25, and it's always good to wake up and if I can't get back to sleep, I log in and listen to some words of wisdom from you, Jason, and all of your guest speakers. Look, I did listen to a number of Frankie's really interesting commentary, and I just had one question or observation for Frankie in relation to his comments on meetings, and I loved the comment you made about incorporating more light into meetings, and I'm talking about Zoom meetings. Just from a reflection, I worked during COVID for 22 months for the state government of Victoria in a particular capacity, and during that 22 months, we had 5 face-to-face meetings. So you don't have to do your maths and realize that we did a lot of Zoom meetings or Microsoft Teams meetings. However, my comment is I attended a lot of meetings, and I think a lot of those meetings were probably a little bit unnecessary. However, you just have to do what you're told, I guess. But if I was, head of organising these meetings, I'd probably change it around and I'd introduce things like stretches and seeing the light and getting outside. they're really wonderful things. I don't know how practical some of them would be, but my question is to Frankie. A lot of people. I went to a lot of meetings, and everyone gets on board, and for the most part turns their camera on. A lot of people don't, but that's another story. But for the meetings you have, and it might go for 45 minutes or 55 minutes, and then all of a sudden everyone goes, "Okay, thanks guys," and bang, and you leave, and you leave, and you leave, and there's like 8 people, and then there's 6 people, and there's 2 people, and then bang, and everyone goes into the cyberspace, and you get on with your job. What I found as a personal reflection was you get off, and then all of a sudden you think, so what's next? And what I missed in the face-to-face meetings was, that informal kind of discussion where lots of the juicy bits actually get done. I'm not talking about people gossiping and who's this and stuff like that, but saying, well, okay, that was the formal part of the meeting, but what's the reality? What's the next steps? And I think that interaction is eliminated in Zoom or Teams meetings, and I think it's a big gap, and hopefully this won't happen too much in the future, that we won't have as many Zoom or Teams meetings. But be interested to hear your thoughts, Frankie, on that, and whether you find that happens in America much. Thanks. I know it's a bit long-winded, but hopefully you got the gist of it.
Hey, Thomas. Yeah, good to hear from you again. I really appreciated your question last time too. You were talking about your friend in San Francisco, and as I mentioned, I'm here in the Bay Area, and very dynamic, very exciting area to be in. High cost of living, but there's a lot of opportunity too. So, no, I thought your question was really great. There's a lot to discuss there. You mentioned the meetings. The big thing is if we cut down on the number of meetings, people could feel a little more empowered to be able to do their work. The big thing with companies offering remote work, remote first, whatever you want to call it, is trusting that you hired the right people in the first place. Why would you hire these folks if you were going to micromanage them, right? If you hired them because you believe they're going to do the job, let them do the job. But when all these meetings are like these little ways, these micro ways to try to check in on people and control their time, a lot of people don't put their camera on because they're doing other stuff. I mean, we know that, right? And so they are trying to actually do their job a lot of the times, or they're trying to eat. I can't tell you how many times people set a meeting and it's like, okay, we're going to be in meetings for 8 hours today, but where was the lunch break? Like, where's people's basic need to get that fresh air. I'm a big fan of walking meetings, and this is a little more informal. You can't do it for everything, but if we're in the office, hey, let's go for a walk around the block. Let's get the blood flowing, to get the movement going. As I mentioned, if you're not incorporating stretching, and you don't have to do it as a group, right? But if you're incorporating, a breathe break, a bathroom break. I mean, 8 hours of meetings, and there's nothing on the counter that says, "Hey, yeah, you go use the bathroom." But even more importantly, the nuances that you were talking about, as far as when you're in communication with someone, you're in person, you can tell how engaged they are. A big thing that people need to be doing at the end of meetings to tie a bow on it is say, hey, can I get some feedback from you? Or, hey, Thomas, what did you take away from this? Or where do you see your priority is? What's actionable? People go on and on and on, just like you said, and it's like, okay, bye everybody, and everyone signs off, and nobody what was the point of that? Or what are the next steps? And so you have to have those conversations at the end, and that needs to be scheduled in too. I think we're all so tired of these meetings that run late, and it's not just one time, and because everyone's heavily engaged and they're excited and they don't want the meeting to end. People are drowning on and on and on. It's like, what's the point of that? There needs to be a stopping point, sort of a drop dead point, And at the end, though, there needs to be that room for actual conversation instead of like, oh, hey, does anybody have any questions? And you've drowned on and on. No, nobody has questions. They just want to get off the phone. So when you incorporate that time in to say, hey, Thomas, what did you take away from that? Mario, Pushkaraj, what are your top priorities or for your department or for you personally? How are you bought in? How does what you do fit into the larger vision, the larger picture of what this project entails? Or how does this feed into to the mission for the company? If you're not always tying back about how that person's contributions are tied into the larger company, then everyone just works in silos. Everyone's unhappy. You're keeping people in the dark, literally. They're only getting that artificial light. And so, those gaps in communication, those nuances that you're talking about are so important because everyone's a little bit different. Some people are fine with just, hey, send me the email. Some people need a little more heartfelt, heart uh, I don't know what you would call it, communication or connection. Everyone learns differently. And so just because you get it, just because you're a do it first leader or you could just do it, you don't need a lot of communication, doesn't mean that your staff doesn't need a little follow up. And so the other way is, besides everyone knowing what their specific priority is following up with them, and say, hey, you know what, I'll check in with you in a little bit and I want to get your feedback. You're really checking in on them too to say, hey, the priorities were A, B, and C. Are those still the priorities? What did you learn in the last couple of hours that you've been working to figure out, well, maybe there's something we need to bring up instead of waiting to the next meeting to get all that feedback. If there's a problem, if there's something that needs to be redirected, we need to know that now, not next week at the weekly meeting. And so again, getting rid of the meetings, getting more buy-in from people, having them restate to you what they're doing and why it's important and how it fits in, and incorporating those stretch breaks, the breathe breaks, the meals, crazy as it sounds, that's going to cut down on all of that stuff because there's no more room for that. So I hope, Thomas, that was helpful. Really insightful commentary and questions. Thank you so much for being here.
No, it's my pleasure. I think the biggest takeaway that I got from that, and you've said some great stuff, and I agree 100% with all what you're saying, is the word tie a bow on it. I think that's my takeaway, because I think a lot of companies don't tie a bow on it. They don't summarize. I mean, they kind of summarize, but they don't engage and summarize, and they don't loop back and get the buy-in from the attendees in the meeting, and especially the ones that don't turn the camera on, because they're the ones that might have the most valuable feedback, but because they're so shy, or introverted, or whatever you want, or eating their breakfast, or whatever they're doing, they're probably the ones that have the most interesting feedback, to give the chairman or the organizer or whoever's doing the most talking. So yeah, totally agree with you. And your thing about the walking and talking one, yeah, I love that, because you can't fall asleep when you're walking. Well, I might be able to, but I'm a bit everyone else in the world. But no, I mean, seriously speaking, if you're on your phone and you're in a meeting, as long as there's not too much traffic and stuff like that, or too many dogs barking, but that's great, because you're energized, you're engaged, and that's when I think you're going to get the most out of your people. So yeah, thanks. I really enjoyed your comments. Thanks, Frankie. No more from me.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Thomas. I want to welcome Mario. A long time. Thank you so much once
Hey guys,
again.
good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever everybody's located. This was a great conversation, Frank and Jason and Thomas and everybody that's on this. As a business owner and an entrepreneur, a lot of what my responsibilities are is building that culture, like Frank and Thomas was talking about, and Jason and Suraj. Because at the end of the day, I have to give them the roadmap and the tools to be successful. And regardless of what the product or service or whatever it is that we're providing to our end user, our clients. And it's also the same for the client. We give them a full picture of what their expectations should be, and they're realistic and achievable at the end of the day and actionable. And that empathetic side of it, a lot of men, because we're geared that way, we're more analytical and practical and task oriented, where we sometimes forget that we're all emotional people. And it plays a big effect into how we engage.
Yeah,
Any
you made
thoughts?
you made a really good point there, and I like the word you used, the word roadmap. You know, the blueprint. What is that? I mean, when a customer comes in, people kind of they don't like. I don't want to say they like to be told what to do, but they want to know what to expect. You know, if you're
Yes,
a customer coming to a business, you're assuming, like when you go to check out at the grocery store, you're assuming that they know how to do that, that they've had other customers, that they've been there before, that hey,
exactly.
if they need help looking something up, that you know how to do that. But when your employees show up, and that's what's so important about that onboarding process that we were talking about with Push Garage, is that
Yep,
what is that process like? Is there a 1, 2, 3, 4? And when you have people working remote, that's even more important, because
yep.
otherwise it takes the executives away and the managers away, because they're talking about the same things over and over. It's so simple to get a software like Slack or something where it's free for the most part for the basic accounts. And there is a video for every little thing that you need to do. Watch the videos. If you have questions, then let's have a conversation, or let's solidify that information. You know, because just like you're saying, Mario, you know, especially as a small business, that time and that energy, I say, you know, money is important, time is important, but the most important thing that I tell the high school students that I talk to right now, the most important thing is attention.
Yep.
Where's your attention? These companies, the YouTubes of the world, you know, they're all fighting for your attention. They're spending millions and millions of dollars for your attention. As a small
Billions and
business
billions.
owner, yeah, as a small business owner,
I can't
your
compete
most
with that.
valuable is attention. Yeah, exactly. And so, you know, the empathy of knowing how other people learn or how other people want to be engaged, that's part of the leadership challenge, right? And that's how people feel empowered, that manager, to be able to make that connection where it's genuine. And then you're going to get a lot more feedback, because now they feel like you're not just going to try to get them in trouble or hold it against them. So
Exactly.
yeah, there's so many great things that you said in such a short amount of time, that you know, we need to be connecting with those people. And if they don't know we don't care, you know, whether we care or not, they're just going to assume you don't care, and that they're just going to keep showing up and giving you sort of the same lackluster performance. But in any great organization, it's just people. It's just
Yep.
average, regular people, but you get them to perform in a way that's exciting for them and exciting for your organization by investing in them.
I'll give you guys an example of what I do on a daily basis. So with my executive team and my board of directors and advisors, I have a call with them every morning, Monday through Sunday, 7 to 7:30 a.m., right? Regardless of where they are in the world. They all hop on because we discuss these important topics, number one. And then on Mondays through Thursdays, we do a 12 to 12:30 call with everybody in their organizations, regardless of what company of mine they're working with. Um, they're all they know I hop on those calls, and when they see me pop up, they all lose their damn minds. They're like, "Shit, Mario's on the call. What's up?" you know. But I do that because I want them to know I'm accessible. I'm not one of these CEOs or founders that's like, not accessible. And even in my email signatures, I specifically have it written where it says, I love receiving text messages. But I also teach my people not to abuse the privilege. Don't text me at 3 o'clock in the morning about some bullshit, you know? But they know that I'm accessible at the end of the day. And if they have questions, if they're struggling with something, even if it's not work related, right? It's a personal thing. They have access, and we have those conversations. And that's very important, very important,
It's
because
boundaries and
that,
expectations, right?
yes,
That's what you're
yes,
hitting on, because
yep,
they know that you're not going to call them at 3 in the morning.
exactly,
And so they know, okay, I can get my work done at this time, and when I'm off, that's family time. You know, as
yep,
executives, we know how to prioritize our time that way. We need to train our folks that this is how we manage our time. This is what we do. And when we're not working, we're focusing on the thing that's in front of us, not that email or, oh crap, is Mario going to call me again? And, at 6 o'clock when I'm trying to have dinner with my family or during the soccer practice. And real quick, that reminds so many great things that you're saying. That reminds me about the childcare thing. Maybe you can't afford childcare or college tuition incentives. What if you just let your person, your key people go to that winter recital that's going on, that field trip, or get off a little early to go pick up the kids so you're not having to hire a babysitter for that gap time before you get home.
Exactly.
If you let
Yep.
people get that 30 minutes, man, that time is priceless. You're telling me if you don't let that parent go watch their kids recital, guess what they're going to do? They're going to go on Instagram and post about how amazing it is. Hey, I'm here at my kid's recital. It's at 1 o'clock on a Tuesday. Everyone's going to wonder, wait, how are you able to do that? Don't you have a job?
Exactly.
Yeah, but I
Yep.
work at this amazing
100%.
company with Mario, with Thomas, Pushkaraz is on, and they value family. Again,
Well, the
free
other thing is,
recruiting all day.
the other important factor is this. So with my businesses, because again, I used to have offices and all that stuff, and I closed them down back in May of 2020, regardless of the whole pandemic thing, because I was going to shut them down anyway. Because we found that productivity really wasn't what it needed to be. And like you said, the whole commute thing, the back and forth, all that BS that goes into it. When we closed the offices down and everybody went remote 100%, bro, their productivity is through the damn roof. It's amazing. It's just amazing, you know, and how much happier people are, because I hear it from the customer side, right? When they're talking to one of my staff or whatever the case is, right? Because I get that feedback and I share that feedback. That's the other thing. A lot of us forget to share that feedback with our teams, and that's important. Those attaboys and attagirls are very important, because we all have challenging days. I mean, it's called life. So it's those little things that matter.
Absolutely, Mario. I appreciate your contribution and thank you so much. It's so nice to have you on the show. I think it's been weeks since I have seen you.
Yeah,
Uh,
and I apologize, Jason. I do see your messages. I don't get on LinkedIn as often as I probably should, but thank you, everybody, and I'll mute myself. Thank you, guys. And Frankie, I'd like to definitely connect with you off this conversation. Feel free to connect with me here on LinkedIn, and let's have a conversation, bro.
Yeah, thank you so much, and I appreciate
And
everyone
Thomas,
that's
good to
listening
see
in.
you on here, bro. I know you're in Australia.
Lovely, lovely. Let's actually start with rapid fire questions. And Mario, feel free to be on stage. All right, all right. So one common question for everybody on stage, and rest of the questions will go directly to Frankie. So Frankie, rapid fire questions again. You have a short span of time to answer these questions. You can't think much. Share the first thought which comes into your head. Okay? Can
Okay.
you say money backwards?
Yanam.
Okay, okay. Which phone or computer application do you use the most?
Instagram.
All right, me too. And LinkedIn now. And some Adobe applications, and the list goes on. Okay, if you were to start like a secret society, what would you start?
It would be a book club where we eat pizza.
Can you elaborate on that? Can you expand on that?
Yeah, I like to read books, but again, people aren't making those connections, especially at work, as Mario mentioned. Everyone's remote, but give people opportunities to have relationships otherwise, and they're going to find that super fulfilling, and they're going to get all their needs met.
Uh-huh.
But books, knowledge is a dime a dozen. Knowledge is free these days, but applying that knowledge and getting around like-minded people that know what you're going through, or just for leisure, it could be a fiction book or whatever it is. You get people together, and I love pizza, so let's have some food and let's have a good time.
Okay, what was the name of the society again, you said?
Oh, Book and Pizza Club,
Book and
the
Pizza
the,
Club.
the BPC.
Okay, okay. What is the highest number you ever counted?
Oh, geez, 1,000.
All right, all right. Okay, last question. It will be a common question for everybody on stage. Okay, if you were to be in a food fight with your friends or families, whatever, what dishes would you prefer to throw at people? Okay, let's start with Frankie.
Oh, I'm going for the pie. Large impact, high splatter. I want to demoralize them right off the gate.
All right, large impact pie. Okay, that's super cool. Just one dish? I mean, how about a few more? Just one?
Oh, yeah. If I'm trying to demoralize them, right? If I'm trying to win, then yeah, it's got to be liquids. It's got to be soft, gooky stuff. Like the texture's got to be there. They got to be on point.
All right, all right, all right. So let me ask others. Okay, let's start with Pushkaraj, the first
So,
percentage.
so,
Pushkaraj.
yes. So I have two bifurcations. If it's only family, then please only water. If it's apart from family, then cream, whipped cream, man, bring it on.
Okay, whipped cream by Pushkaraj. Okay, okay. Let's hear from Thomas. What about you, Thomas? Food fight.
Sorry, can you just repeat the question? I just got the cream, but I didn't get the honey or whatever it was.
Okay, so if you were to be on a food fight, let's say friends or family, whoever, what dishes would you prefer to throw at people?
Oh, I thought you said a foot fight, as in foot.
No,
That's food.
food fight.
That's a different that's a
It's
different
not
live.
UFC, right? Oh, gee. Food fight. You stumped me. I'm lost for words. Can you go to Mario?
Yeah, absolutely. Mario, let's hear from you.
Hummus.
Okay, expand on that. What are you going to do with it?
Well, it's the viscosity is pretty good because it's sticky, and you can target it a lot better.
Okay, how much for precision
Precision?
and viscosity? You said, right?
Yeah. You can fling that sucker at anybody, man. I'm pretty good at flinging stuff.
Lovely, lovely. Okay, what about you, Thomas? Do you need more time?
I'm going to go out on a limb. I know you said food, but since it's summer here, and since I'm really hot, I'll go snow fight. So snowball.
Okay, what was that?
Yeah,
Snow fight.
throwing snow because I want to cool down. I'm sick of the heat here, and I'm just making you guys jealous.
Okay. So just paraphrasing what I have heard so far. So Frankie said a large impact pie. Okay, Pushkarat said water for family and whipped cream for others. Mario said hummus. Okay, for viscosity, and Thomas, went ahead with snow to cool down. So thank you so much, guys, for this lovely share. Okay, I hope that gave you a little giggle and laughing room with this serious discussion which we are having. And again, this is a live podcast being recorded. I will be uploading the show shortly. So let's actually give Frankie the opportunity to promote his business. So Frankie, could you tell my audience what do you do, or what kind of speaking engagements or any kind of promotions which are going on you like to promote on my show, and how can people reach out to you?
Been a lot of fun being here today and hearing everyone's feedback and questions. So I'm really grateful for the opportunity. As far as my work and what I'm doing, I just love to connect people. And so I don't necessarily have anything outright for sale, but I'd love to hear about the kind of challenges people are having and seeing if there's some way that, we can come together and figure out a solution. I talk to everyone. I talk to high school students all the time, entrepreneurial students. So I can go to schools, I can talk to nonprofits, I can talk to your employees about financial wellness. If you need to install some of these plans, the short-term disability, the group life insurance, a 401k, a 403b, the 457, whatever the deferred comp plan is where you live, those are things I can do. I love talking about my books. I write kids' books for children about money, retirement planning for individuals. I'm just looking to connect. So the best way to get a hold of me, of course, is my website, frankmoneytalk.com. But really, the Instagram I mentioned is where I spend the most of my time. And where I'm leveling up. I really didn't do social media before the pandemic hit, but I realized, especially in talking with these high school students, I've got to get on social. I've got to find out the things that they like. So Instagram is the best way to get a hold of me at Frank Money Talk. So thank you so much for allowing me to share that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And people who are on stage who are not following, me or Frankie, I would request you to send us a connection request. Usually, once the show is uploaded, I give credit to all the people who have joined the stage and spoken, and I do tag people. So please follow me back if not done. That would be my request. And another thing is that it's hard to produce shows, and it's hard to actually do these live shows and keep it engaging at the same time. So, and even finding guests like Frankie and many others who have been on my podcast. So if you're on LinkedIn, I would highly recommend that you go on my guest profile or my profile and give us those kudos. I think it's called as endorsements. If you think we offered value, and it was helpful to you as listeners, please endorse us for our skill sets, which you see there. That would be really be appreciative. And I also want to give you guys a heads up on some of the future shows. So season 3, episode 16, which is going to be next Wednesday, December 28th. I'm going to be speaking about how to use media and PR to your advantage with a Brazilian pop singer named Becca Brazil. Very influential person on Clubhouse, and not only on Clubhouse but also on social media. And she has an agency, a PR agency, which she's a co-founder, and she's going to help us understand how this PR thing works, how this media works, how small business owners, medium business owners, if you want to actually get that momentum and traction, how you can make this happen by listing yourself, being a part of magazine publications, and how you can reach out, and how that process works. So we're going to deep dive. I'm still working on the questions, but I should have something really interesting next week for you to listen to. So please, follow my page. If you're on my profile on LinkedIn, you should be able to actually see the event. Okay, it's already on the featured section. And I also want to give you a heads up that on January the 4th, I have a very exclusive interview with Tom Dusenberry. He's actually the former CEO of Hasbro Interactive, Atari, and Games.com. He has developed games for Coca-Cola, Disney, and a lot of other big gigantic corporations, even the Monopoly game. So we would be speaking about the business of games. This is a very exclusive show. It was really hard to have a veteran from the gaming industry to be on my podcast. He finally accepted my request, so I would highly recommend you guys to RSVP for both these events. It's all on my profile under the featured section. You should be able to find it. And Christmas is actually down the corner, so I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year as well. We don't have a show on the 25th, but I hope you guys have a fun time with your family. Happy holidays to everyone. And do you have any final thoughts, Frankie? Anything else you like to share before we wrap things up?
Jason, such the professional, such a great guy. Putting in this work, putting in this effort day in and day out. So I appreciate you, Push Garage, Thomas, Mario, and everyone that listened in. Thank you so much. I had a great time, and I look forward to continue being a listener and a fan of your show. Thank you so much.
Lovely, lovely, lovely. Thank you so much, guys, and girls, and everybody who is listening. You take care of yourself.
Ho, ho, ho!